Good to be back with you once again on the India development debate this evening. The political slugfest over the Rafale fighter jet deal is attaining bigger proportion every passing day, facing attack from the opposition parties for allegedly misleading the country's top court, winning a favourable verdict. The BJP today launched a counter-offensive against Rahul Gandhi. But remember, just hours before we started this show, it is important to point out here that the faulty, quote-unquote, Supreme Court order, which referred to a non-existent CAG report and also made the government move and seek a correct verdict, has now found a new CAG draft report that has been tabled. So more on all of that in just a bit. But first, let me get my wonderful panel introduced to all of you. Hitesh Chen, spokesperson of the BJP. Sanjay Jha represents the Congress. Prasad Bhushan, senior lawyer, and of course a petitioner in this case of the Supreme Court. Maruf Raza, consultant and strategic affairs expert. Thank you, each one of you, for being with us. And Hitesh, if I may, and may I start with the Supreme Court order, which had given a clean chit earlier. That got later mired in controversy on factual grounds like a non-existent CAG report and a letter from the Indian Air Force officer that doesn't seem to be on record. The government obviously moving a petition a day later to correct the judgment. Has all of this not, I mean, you know, there was one big headline, all clear on the Rafale deal, and then there were these errors that happened. Has all of this really made Rafale even more murky?
Well, frankly speaking, no. Bad losers never accept the truth. They always manufacture lie, and they continue to manufacture the lie. Rafale is a classical example where the creators of falsehood, they come, they speak lies, they persist with the lie, and they will continue with the lie. Let us look at the Supreme Court order in a perspective. What was the case? One man decided and took all the decision. The Supreme Court came to the conclusion, it referred to 74 committees being 74 meetings and committees and everything, and then the decision taken. Will the CAG and those observations have any impact on that? No. Then on the procedural aspect, the Supreme Court said they found completely the procedural or everything in order. Will the CAG observation have the impact on that? No. Then as far as the choosing the offset partner, the Supreme Court said it is not the Indian government who said, but it was Dassault. Will the CAG observation will have any impact on that wording? No. As far as the price is concerned, it is 9% lesser. As per, will that CAG aspect will say no. So the fact is, they are just trying to hang on one thread of some mistake where we have already put an application. Because they cannot see that lies and myths have been bursted. Therefore, they are trying to manufacture lies after lies.
No. 1 second, Hitesh. Hitesh, you know, before I go across to Prasad Bhushan, it may be a case of lies like you are saying, but there is a factual and a rather big factual error which has made the government of the day seek a correct verdict. Let's not lose sight of that. I will take a quick question to Maruf and will request you to keep it short and then go across to Mr. Bhushan. And Maruf, does all of the Rafale controversy really boil down to flawed English grammar? And is the government of the day teaching the three senior most judges of the Supreme Court better English here?
Well, Supriya, the thing is that you can look at it which way it suits you. But the fact of the matter is that the Apex Court has decided to take a position on a number of important issues, apart from the flaw that has been rightly pointed out, and the government has responded to that, where the word has been missed out and is or was shown to the sort of PAC, was used, para 25 is where the controversy all rests. But the central question to me is, was the entire petition, as the distinguished Mr. Bhushan would probably better base to answer, based on the fact that whether the government showed it to the CAG or not? There are other questions that were raised. The questions that were raised were about procedures. The questions were raised about pricing, about the capability of the aircraft, where the Supreme Court has said that when India's adversaries have 4th or 5th generation aircraft, there's no reason why our Air Force should be denied that. And most importantly, the fact of the matter is that the government did go through the various procedures. Now, whether you say that Modi can't take the decision without the approval of the cabinet committee because he personally took the decision, there have been cases where prime ministers and presidents of the other country have agreed in principle, which then goes through the procedural case. A classic example was the recent deal that was signed with the Russians of the S-400 missile systems and the air defense systems. This was agreed in principle earlier, but finally,
Maruf, give me a minute.
Legitimized when Mr. Putin came here.
Okay, Maruf, give me a minute. I will go across to someone who's doggedly studied it, who's been at it for many, many months now. And Prashant Bhushan, what is the provision in the law to quote-unquote correct a judgment? Because the government's fresh affidavit in the SC states it was an error, as it had only cited a procedure which was misread, and there was a grammatical error in the affidavit that led the Supreme Court to believe that the CAG had actually given a report that had been seen by the PSC. You know, the controversy is only getting bigger. In light of that, I know you'll be tempted to perhaps agree with me, but does this judgment need to be recalled?
Firstly, this application given by the government for correcting the error, under the rules there is a procedure for giving an application for correcting clerical errors, typographical errors. These errors are certainly not clerical or typographical errors. They are serious errors of fact. The court says A, that the CAG report has been submitted to the PSC. It says that the PSC has thereafter placed it before Parliament. It says that the report is in public domain. It also says that the report has been redacted. All these four facts are totally false. Now the government is trying to paper it over by filing this review application, or rather correction application, by saying that they gave something in a sealed cover which has been misread and misunderstood by the court. The first question is, the whole judgment is based on two notes handed over by the government to the court, which are not signed by anybody, which are not on affidavit. Nobody in the government has taken responsibility for the facts or the claims stated in those two notes, or the claims made in those two notes. We know that some of the claims made in those notes, which the court has regurgitated in its judgment, are factually incorrect. This is one very serious problem. The court cannot take into account. The whole judgment just regurgitates whatever those unsigned notes say, and without even considering our rebuttals. We had filed a response to the unsigned note which was given to us. One unsigned note was not even given to us, just given to the court in a sealed cover. It's a secret unsigned note. The other one which was given to us, we had filed a rejoinder to that, rebutting each thing that is mentioned in that. The court doesn't go into our rebuttal. The court doesn't go into our petition at all on the facts and the claims that we had made in our petition. The court just reproduces whatever is there in this unsigned note, and on that basis says that it's all right. We don't need to examine this any further. I mean, it's an utterly absurd judgment.
Mr. Bhushan, give me a minute.
In my view, it defies all principles of legal adjudication. No court can adjudicate on anything which is not on record. This is not on record. No unsigned note can be taken on record by the court.
Mr. Bhushan,
these notes have no legal value whatsoever.
Yes, that's an important point that you're making. This isn't an affidavit. The buck doesn't stop with anybody in the government on this. Yes. Give me a minute. Mr. Bhushan, please give me a minute. Let me go across to Sanjay Jha. And Sanjay, the reality is that this is not an affidavit. This isn't signed, so the buck nowhere stops in the government officials or anywhere on this. Though, you know, you were not a part of the petition in the first place. You were not one of those petitioners who did it. Why are you now hinging your entire argument on what has happened in the court? I know you're talking about the JPC, and I'll come to that in just a bit, and in fact I want to talk about the weekend drama and then a draft CAG report that has surfaced. But why are you now attacking what's happened in the court? Because you were not a party to begin with, and you always thought Supreme Court is not the right port of call to even decide on this.
Absolutely, and Supriya, we are very consistent with that. You know, the Supreme Court is not an investigating body. we have reiterated this point very often, that if you look at the Rafale scam, it's 1,30,000 crores. It's a monumental number. You have to actually summon people. You have to summon people from the Defense Ministry. You need to ask people from the Air Force. You have to summon the Prime Minister, because a lot of the decisions have been taken by him unilaterally. Now, the Supreme Court is not going to do it. It therefore needs the JPC can do that. And we are astonished, because where the JPC was concerned in the past, and I'm saying this because we have all the facts, whether it was an allegation made by them on Bofors, whether it was an allegation made by them on 2G, or whether even on Augusta Westland, we offered them the JPC. Why is the Narendra Modi government so scared of the JPC? Now,
I will come to that.
The government of Narendra Modi has committed perjury prima facie, because they have lied to the Supreme Court. They have lied on affidavit. I think it's a very serious constitutional crisis we see. If a government misleads the Supreme Court,
that's exactly what the point Mr. Bhushan is making.
Price, because Sanjay, the price of the aircraft, that is the cornerstone of the allegations.
Sanjay, give me a minute. Sanjay, please give me a minute. And I want to actually talk about the draft report that has now surfaced. Maruf, to you then, and I'm going to ask you a quick question. After the weekend drama of a missing CAG report and the government moving to correct the verdict, and, Mr. Gandhi having this huge press conference and all of that, we are now given to understand that a draft CAG report has actually been placed now. Does it not fuel speculation further and what happens next? Or does it really settle the matter that there was a report in the making, it's now in Parliament, and there's going to be a call on that? Or do you find it particularly interesting that 48 hours after what happened at the Supreme Court, we now have a draft CAG report?
Supriya, I am not one of those who's capable of, neither do I by intent question the wisdom of the judges in the Supreme Court. If it is being questioned, as Mr. Bhushan outlined the various aspects, my response is that if you didn't have faith in the Supreme Court, why did you go to the Supreme Court in the first place? The second thing is that if the Supreme Court and the honorable judges there have responded to statements and affidavits that were given that were not legally binding because they were not signed, I think the honorable judges know better on what they should respond to, on what they should base their comments on, than for us to infer that this is not a document that they should be responding to and another one document they should be. Now, let me also sort of draw your attention to two other issues. One is the point that Mr. Jha has raised about 1,30,000 crores. Firstly, nowhere is this current deal of 36 aircrafts in that range. It is 59,000 crores. And if you're looking at the total 126 aircrafts that would come on the same pricing, then the figure goes in excess of 2 lakh crores. So 130,000 crores, I don't know where they've got it from. Anyway, even if you go by those figures, also the aspect to understand is that what is the offset element, and as per the constant allegations that are being put. Sir, please let me complete. I didn't speak. The other aspect to understand is that when the courts took a decision to pronounce on this, I cannot convince myself that the courts would be so flippant to, not look at all the documentary evidence and then come to a decision which they know has enormous proportions for the political discourse in the country, because it's now not a national security issue. It's become a political slugfest.
So then what explains this?
Every party trying to claim that they've got a victory
what
out of this. And I am not against a JPC. Supriya, I am not against a JPC. My last point, I'm not against a JPC. But should it be done, do it, but do it in the given time frame. Do it in the given time frame so that the aircraft still come to the Air Force and they are operationally fit to fly.
No, Maruf, 1 second. Maruf, I'm sorry, I will have to come in there. Maruf. I agree with you that, the judges are not stupid and they were not sitting and thinking this is going to become fodder for political slugfest, which is exactly why I'm more astonished that how could a judgment as erroneous as this come, which is going to refer to a CAG report that's not existing. That is what amazes me. But anyways, give me a minute. I want to go across to Prashant Bhushan and then I will go across to Hitesh Jain and Sanjay Jha. Mr. Bhushan, we are seeing what's unfolding unfolding in the Supreme Court, isn't Parliament then perhaps the right place to discuss, debate and settle the political discourse around Rafale? Or do you believe politicians on both ends of the political spectrum are simply exploiting this, the Supreme Court verdict to score a brownie point by the BJP and insistence on a JPC by the Congress? I mean, the government of the day says they're willing to discuss it. Shouldn't discussion happen in Parliament now?
Yes, it should happen in Parliament, and JPC would be certainly a good forum because at least all the facts would be given to the JPC. Today, the government is just hiding behind secrecy, not even revealing the facts, not just about pricing, but even about the procedure followed, about the price negotiating committee, about the manner in which the benchmark price was raised by the Cabinet Committee on Security headed by the Prime Minister himself from 5.2 billion to 8.2 billion for these 36 aircrafts. So, we need all these things. We need firstly a disclosure of all the facts, we need a CAG audit, we need a JPC, and we need a criminal investigation. This is far too serious a matter, and the court's order, as I pointed out, just regurgitates whatever the government said in those unsigned notes without taking into account that we had comprehensively rebutted that. For example, the court says that this deal had run into rough weather, quoting the government's, relying upon the government's unsigned note, that the earlier deal of 126 aircrafts had run into rough weather because of disagreement between Dassault and HAL, when in fact just 2 weeks before this new deal was signed by the Prime Minister on 25th March 2015, the CEO of Dassault in a press conference in Paris with top Air Force and HAL officials said that the earlier deal of 126 aircraft is almost complete, 95% complete, it will be inked soon, and we are very happy to work with HAL. Now, the court does not even take into account this statement made by the CEO of Dassault 2 weeks before this new deal is signed, and just regurgitates whatever the government is saying, that the deal had run into rough weather. I mean, how can any court pronounce judgment on the basis of just some unsigned note without taking into account our rebuttal on affidavit?
Okay, give me a minute, Prashant Bhushan. I will go across to Hitesh. And Hitesh, just to reassert and reiterate what Mr. Jaitley has said as far as the JPC is concerned, that is a committee of politicians fit to review issues decided by the Supreme Court. There have been 6 JPCs that have been formed in India, all on issues which had partisan divide, whether it was Bofors of 1987, the irregularities in securities and banking transaction, the JPC on 2G, the JPC on the VVIP chopper scam. I mean, all of these issues are issues where there was a partisan divide, and if Parliament can actually form and review and actually undo what the Supreme Court decides on the Atrocities Prevention Act, why can it not do on this? Why can a JPC not be formed? If you are so in the clear and if things are so transparent, why are you shying away from a JPC? It was done for 2G, it was done for VVIP by the government of the day where they were in the dock.
Why did Prashant Bhushan and proxy supporters of the Congress move the Supreme Court? Did we tell them to move the Supreme Court, or they moved on their own motion? At that time when they moved the Supreme Court, did they demand a JPC? They were jolly well waiting for the decision of the Supreme Court. Supreme Court judgment is very clear, and there is no provision in the Constitution that JPC can sit over as a court of appeal on the Supreme Court, or Supriya or ET now can sit and today question in the debate the judgments of the Supreme Court. There is not a single answer given by Prashant Bhushan or Sanjay Jha on the 4 points. For example, whether one person has decided or the decision has been taken by the committee, or whether the case of the Prashant Bhushan in the Supreme Court was that there was a non-existent CAG report and then the pricing
Hitesh,
and all these
let me come in for a minute. Hitesh, 1 second. No, Hitesh.
They have no answer.
Hitesh,
Supriya, you should allow me to complete. Supriya, you are being very
Hitesh,
unfair.
you listen to me
and
now.
I must say that you are very prejudiced and biased.
No, I am not being
debate.
unfair.
Your whole attempt, you are casting aspersions.
Okay,
sorry,
now
I'm
that
sorry to
Hitesh,
say you are sitting
1 second,
over
Hitesh. Now that you are pulling me.
And this is not the way you are This is
No,
not
no,
the
one
way you are
second,
going
Hitesh,
to
one
look at the
second.
judgment of
I
the
am
Supreme
sorry,
Court.
I will
I'm
come in
clearly
there.
putting you in the
Hitesh Jain, you will now have to listen to me. Till you were doing the mudslinging with the Congress and Prashant Bhushan, I would take it lying down because they are there to defend themselves. They jolly well do that. If you are going to pull me into this discussion and telling me I'm sitting like a super lord and I'm being prejudiced, I will take offense to this because I believe in doing non-biased shows. I've got 2 supporters, 2 detractors. That is how I do my debates. I would really like you to go back and review what you said because that's not how I do these debates. And as far as the question on JPC is concerned, it still remains unanswered. Anyways, I do not like to be pulled into a political slugfest. Don't make that mistake. Sanjay Jha, my question is to you. You are asking for a JPC and you're asking for JPC given precedence and all of that. The government of the day is willing to talk to you on the floor of the house. They are willing to have a discussion. Why are you not agreeing to that? Why are you insisting upon a JPC?
Supriya, discussion is not a substitute for forensic criminal investigation. I mean, it's a very elementary, basic thing. Arun Jaitley
At least be ready for that. You wanted a discussion, now you're running away from this.
What is the bottom line here? No, so Supriya, no, we will discuss it. We'll have a JPC for sure. We'll make it happen. I promise you here. The people who are guilty of the scam on Rafale will be caught. They will not get away scot-free. Narendra Modi will have to answer. And Chaukidar Chowdhury is not rhetoric, it's a fact. Now let me answer your question. You know, the BJP is going downtown on the Supreme Court verdict. But Supriya, let me tell you the political desperation of the BJP. The Supreme Court verdict is very clear, unambiguous when it says that we have jurisdictional limitations and restrictions, which is why this verdict of theirs hasn't looked at the critical aspect of pricing. It hasn't even looked at the other aspects of the scam that we are talking about. And number 2, Mr. Raza says, where does 1,30,000 crore come from? Sir, it's not very complicated. 30,000 crore is direct offsets and 1 lakh crore is the life cycle business cost that will also be reimbursed to the offsets partner. Therefore, it's 1,30,000 crores. And the very pertinent point, Supriya, at the end of the day, why is this government misleading the Supreme Court? Even if a JPC is formed, the BJP and allies will be in a majority. So, ये समझ में नहीं आता ये डर क्यों रहे हैं? They will have majority in the JPC, but because there will be documents in the public domain, they're scared.
Okay, Sanjay, I'm sorry. Let me come in there. And I am tempted to believe that Rafale is really going the Bofors way. And both sides of the political spectrum would want to keep this alive to get political mileage of this. I don't know what is Maruf Raza's view on this, but let me nonetheless ask him this question. Is Rafale headed the Bofors way where both ends of the political spectrum, the BJP did it to the Congress in Bofors, and the Congress is perhaps paying back to the BJP on Rafale? You want to keep it alive because there are political brownie points to be leveraged out of this.
Supriya, I cannot agree more with you. In fact, I wrote about this and I took the same position many months ago when this began to go beyond just an inquiry or investigation or questions being asked about how the deal was implemented. It was way before President Hollande made his statement, and then there were counter statements by Mr. Tipper, the CEO of Dassault, etc., etc. The fact of the matter is that the sequence looks very obvious. This is before elections. This issue is important. It has become a rallying point for various people and political parties. So why not keep flogging it? Fine. I mean, that is for the 2 political parties to decide. And since I don't have political leanings, I cannot comment who will pull the final rug under the feet of the other person and when. I'm not able to predict that. But what I can say is that the BJP-led NDA government has not covered itself with glory on how they have responded at various levels with a certain degree of meticulousness that was expected from them, but they have gone into it with a sense of complacency. And one of the examples is what is doing the rounds now. And the quick point is, I'm not against a JPC, but do it in a given time frame. Do it in a given time frame so that the equipment still arrives for the FOs, so that our national security needs are met. Period.
Fair point. Maruf, I'm going to take a quick last point with Prashant Bhushan, and even as you slug it out in the Supreme Court, the reality is that our parliamentarians have been left to resort to the privilege motion politics here. You know, to a privilege motion moved by the Congress in Rajya Sabha. There was one moved by the Lok Sabha. In some sense, is Rafale being mired completely by politics of the day and more than substantive issues that should be discussed?
Yes, obviously there is politics around this issue also, but the need for the people of this country is that they need to know what has happened in this deal, and therefore firstly they need transparency. There are so many facts which have come out which are so disquieting. The manner in which the Prime Minister went and signed this deal with the French President, bypassing all procedures of the Services Qualitative Requirement, Defence Acquisition Council, etc. Thereafter, the manner in which the benchmark price of the aircrafts was increased, the manner in which Make in India and transfer of technology was thrown out, the manner in which the offset partner, that is Reliance, a 12-day-old company, was chosen. All this requires complete transparency, because public suspicion about all this will continue until you put out all the facts, all the documents on the table, allow independent agencies to examine them. The CAG, the CBI. The CBI of course is not independent, it needs to be monitored by the court, but also the JPC, all of them should go into it.
Okay. Okay. On that note, I think I've completely run out of time here. Rafale is never an issue that ends on time. It lends itself to histrionics and a lot of emotions. The reality is that none of us are impressed with what's happening on Rafale, whether you're the ruling side or you're in the opposition. India's security is paramount. We must have those fighter jets well in time for us to make our borders, our defense forces well equipped. The politics around this is unwarranted. But sunshine, and I keep repeating this once and over again, sunshine is the best disinfectant. If facts need to come out in the open, so be it. At least the politics of the day will stop on the matter. But on that note, thank you very much, Hitesh Jain, Sanjay Jha, Maruf Razan, Prashant Bhushan, for being with us. We take a quick breather. Up next is Top 10 at 10.